Nigel, a couple of days since the defeat on Tuesday, how have you reflected on that performance?
I suppose in the same way as we spoke about after the game, there's no point dwelling on it. It's a bit frustrating that we didn't give ourselves the best chance of winning the game just because we were a little bit out of sorts. But in some ways, but in other ways, I thought we at least tried to push a very good side actually. So look, it's about being realistic about things. It's also about being honest about it as well. And but now it's we've also got to make sure we get our preparation right for the game against Swansea because it's the last game before the international break, and it's important we try and get a win.
I know we spoke about the bright spark of Ephraim Hiboa when he came on. Do you think he's close to a start, or is it really important for you to sort of manage him being so young?
I don't really worry too much about, or even care too much about, whether how young players are in terms of does that affect the opportunity. We'll expose him in the way that we think's right for his development, and certainly he's been introduced in games where we've fared in different ways in terms of results, and he's coped very well in every situation. So what does that mean? It means that he is in our thoughts in terms of taking part in games, whether that be as a sub or whether that be starting. So I suppose you can take whatever you want from that, but he's a player that we think will establish himself at this level, and it's about trying to get that challenge right for him. So at the moment he's doing very, very well, and in time, yes, he will get a start at some point.
And you must be really pleased with his development because, as we spoke about, that you've got quite a few injuries and a small-ish squad.
Well, we've got 5 injuries, and of those, Ross won't be available until maybe January, February time. Rob Atkinson will probably start training in November. Tommy Conway, Eamon Belarus will probably start training in October, and that leaves Andy Vyman where he'll be back in September. So yeah, we've got injuries which we're not going to get back pretty quickly, apart from Andy, I think. And so at the moment we've got 20 players available, of which 3 are goalkeepers, and 2 of those are unproven at this level, and that 20 includes Ephraim, who's 17. So we are tight, there's no doubt about that, but and so even in a game like Norwich, where we made 5 changes, we didn't feel that the changes that we made were going to make us any weaker. We've got a squad of players which is small, but the range of quality is narrower than it's been in the past. So we'll just get on with it, I'm afraid.
And as you said, next up, Swansea.
Mm-hmm.
Is it good for you that you're going away from home? Seem to play more comfortably away from home at the moment?
I don't know whether we play more comfortably, but clearly there is a feeling, and of course the results so far at home haven't been particularly inspiring in the league for sure. In the cup, we played 2 games, won 1, lost 1. The league games, we've struggled to break teams down and play with the verve that we need at home to excite our fans. So that remains a situation that we need to solve, and we will do. Away from home, they're always different games when you play away from home. We've had a couple of really good performances which have given us points on the road, which is good. But we've just got to go to Swansea and make sure that we play as well as we can play. And we know that we need to pick up a positive result. And I think the players themselves are both looking forward to the game, but also are keen to not put things right, but to make sure that we go into the international break with a positive feeling. That's the big thing for us.
And Swansea's still waiting for their first league win. Are you expecting a different style of play now that Russell Martin's moved on and Michael Duff's come in?
A little bit different, but generally speaking, there's still a possession-based side. There've been a few changes of personnel. I like Michael as well. He's a good guy and good manager. So yeah, it'll be a game in which, as they always are at Swansea, they can be tough encounters with them, but we're going there trying to get our own performance right first. But yeah, championship games are never easy.
Thanks for your time and good luck.
Okay, thanks.
When you spell out the squad,
yeah,
makeup in that manner is quite striking. I mean, everybody kind of knows it, but when you sort of say it out like that with 20 players, 17 outfielders, one of which is a 17-year-old, as good as and talented as Ephraim is, it's still quite a challenge for him. I guess the obvious sort of follow-on is that how concerned are you by that squad makeup?
Well, I don't think of it like that, to be honest with you. It's what we have, and it's I, as a manager, have to work within the parameters that are set. It's the way it is, I'm afraid. We don't have scope to do any more, and so we just have to try and, we've been a bit unlucky with 1 or 2 injuries. And I said in pre-season, even before we kicked a ball, that it's going to be important to try and keep players fit. And you know, we went into the season knowing that Rob would be out for a considerable time still. So, you know, I think Ross's injury is one which, yeah, I mean, it's so frustrating for him, and we just have to accept that it's going to be a long haul.
In terms of, if we're talking about the transfer window with a sense of finality.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice way of starting that.
It's, because you're not going to be watching Sky Sports News tomorrow, are you?
Me? No.
But in terms of it is done, and I appreciate there may be a few, fair to say, maybe a loan or 2 that might happen out of the club. Is that possible?
Not from the first team.
No,
group.
within the under 21 setup potentially.
Yeah, but I mean that's a question for teams. Yeah. But you know, I've just spoken to him now, and we've talked about, you know, look, there's two things that run parallel here. One of them is the first team operation. The other side of it is how we develop some of our younger players. And so, you know, I mean, people like Raf and Jamie Knight-Bell have been in and around the first team, but they've both had a difficult time in the under-21s recently. So, you know, in terms of people making the assumptions that they might be included in the first team squad is wide of the mark, because you've got to remember what happened to Joe Lowe. You know, and you've got to be careful that you don't expose players to a situation that is potentially damaging too. So one of the big things about being a coach in the game where you're trying to develop players is you've got to make sure that when you set a challenge for players that it's achievable, because otherwise you can break them. And so, you know, I mean, we've talked about Eamon Benarous as well. You've got to remember, Eamon's been out for 18 months. He's been out a long, long time. And he only just broke into the squad anyway. So he's hardly a seasoned campaigner at championship level. So, you know, we've got to be careful that when he comes back in, that the challenges that he then has are appropriate for him. So, you know, look, we've got the number of players that we've got, and you know, whatever people's take on that is, and whatever my own personal take on that is, it doesn't really matter. Those are the circumstances. When you're in my type of job, you have to accept that even if the parameters are a bit tight, if they're set by the owner, You've got to get on with it. So it's as simple as that.
So if we're talking about a window is effectively closed, I appreciate it's not.
It's not.
It's not, but it's effectively closed from a club perspective. How happy?
Well, I hope so. I mean, look, I'm looking at this now and thinking, what I don't want is to lose any more players.
Well, that was going to be.
So that's the big thing for me, because we know that we're not going to add. So, or if we all of a sudden find money out of nowhere, I'd be very, very surprised, and there'd be a part of me that goes, I'm not really having that, you know, because it's the window. This window's a long window, and you need to get your homework right on players, and you need to make sure you get players in as you know, as early as possible, and we have done that to a large extent, and you know, we don't have flexibility now to go out and get anybody. We certainly don't want to lose anymore. That's something which would leave us very, very short.
Is there any indication that might happen?
No, none at all. But there's always background noise, isn't there?
Yeah.
And whether that's, you know, I mean, I don't come to the training ground on deadline day, basically, unless something's drastic happens, or we sign a player on deadline day. You know, what's the point? I don't expect there to be any business, so I won't be here. And so it's one of those situations where, but I know from experience that we've had some ridiculous calls on deadline day where clubs have all of a sudden tried to put bids in for some of our players, and you know that it happened 3 windows ago, and it was like, what they're talking about, and it's effectively leaves no time to replace players. And actually, you'd be amazed how many strange events happen on deadline day, which, you know, our club secretary must at times think, wow, I've got no time to get the paperwork done. You know, it triggers a panic scenario for some people, and there seems to be a real thirst for this sort of sensational news, which I find bizarre when you think how long the window is.
In that sense, then, how would you review the summer business?
Well, generally pretty good. Yeah, generally pretty good. Still disappointed about the Alex Scott situation. Of course I am. Because as a manager, you don't want to lose your best players.
Without wanting to dwell, well, I guess I will dwell a little bit on it, but with Alex Scott and the amount, I mean, can you appreciate, and of course the wage argument stands up to a point, but
well, look, the wage argument, it doesn't. Why I don't understand why I say it stands up to a point. The wage bill limit has been set by the owners, and that's it. So when you write about agreeing things, it's not about agreeing anything. It's been set, and we have to do everything that we can to abide by that, and we try our best to do that. That's what we've always tried to do. I mean, when Richard was here, you know, those windows that we operated in were really difficult for us because we got players still on longish contracts that we were trying to move on. The climate's changed a little bit now. Well, not a little bit, a lot. We've now got a more healthy squad, a squad that's worth something. You know, we have assets, and we've reduced the wage bill. And I think that is credit to everybody who works here. You know, we've tried our best to try and stay competitive, but do what the club needs to do. When you get a fee like we have for Alex Scott, what it does then is generate a narrative of why aren't we spending the money? I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
Well, I guess in a way that's the frustration from supporters because you're the one who's having to answer it. That's I think.
Yeah, but look, when you're a football manager, my job is to front up the football operation, and I have to work within the parameters that I'm given. and that's it. It doesn't matter whether I'd like more or not. Of course I would like more money. But I also, to an extent, understand where we are. You need to ask questions to somebody else apart from me. You know, I'm the football manager, and I front up the football operation, and I understand people's frustrations, but I have to work within the parameters that are set for me and us as a football department.
Were the parameters the same from when planning for the summer began? That was Paul Ball. From when planning for the summer began to the point where Alex's sale looked like it might happen, were the parameters always the same? Because some of the...
Well, look, I don't think that's not something really for me to discuss in the public domain. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you know, football managers always like a bit more money to spend, and I think what's possibly intensified the argument is maybe because we've got some injuries and we are tight, you know. But it's life, isn't it? Can't do anything about it, so just get on with it. Listen. I don't think you've ever heard me moan about anything like that. So I'm not somebody who wastes a lot of energy on things I can't change. So it's it's where we are, and really, if you want other answers about it from a business point of view, you're going to have to ask somebody else.
Based on what you have then, which obviously there's some very, very good players in the squad.
Yeah.
And in some ways you can make the case, even without Alex, there's greater depth, options to you and all that kind of thing. Are your ambitions or your expectations or your anticipation of kind of how the season might play out the same as what it was going into?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, I can't get involved in an emotional roller coaster in the same way that maybe other people do when one or two results don't go the way that we'd like. Flem would probably say it a bit different, but I am actually an optimist. I mean, he's a ridiculous optimist. I'm a bit of a realist as well, but I don't believe in changing what I've said just because we've not played as well as we'd like at home and we get knocked out of the cup by a good team. I don't worry about stuff like that. We have to deal with the situation because we need to. There's no point me sitting here and being a downbeaten negative about a situation when actually I know that we've got good players, and I would like to think that hopefully during the season our fan base will get excited with some of the players that we've got who will get better. You know, I mean, Sam Bell's on standby for the under-21 squad, England under-21 squad, which I think is brilliant for him and is testament to, again, what we produce here as a football club. So he's been right the way through the academy. I know, obviously his dad played for the club for a long time. But he's, you know, when he's considered 2 years ago on loan at Grimsby, we talked about this last year, he came back here and he has broken into the first team and done well. And he will get better. He will get better. The problem is, you see, sometimes when you've got young players in the side and things aren't going as well as we would like, there is then the temptation to think, wish that we had something else. But I've said many times, to improve on what we have is going to cost an awful lot of money. And that's the key thing to it. I wouldn't want to start bringing in players for the sake of it. We're still short in defensive areas. Absolutely, we know that. But Taylor coming in is a really good deal for us, and that one came very much out of nowhere. But I'm really delighted that firstly we've gone on loan, but secondly I'm really pleased that we've got a deal agreed so that maybe when we get to the next window, we're in a position to make it permanent. But if we can't do it in January, we could do it still at the end of the season, which again gives us as a club realistic options, and it allows us on a financial situation to be able to make that decision when we can, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah,
I would rather him be permanent, but the way that the deal's structured actually allows us to have that flexibility and invest that money in him when it's probably more appropriate for us. But that does mean that we miss him for 2 games against West Brom, which is a bit of a shame.
Just to go back to the injuries, just in terms of Ross,
Yeah.
so that's he requires surgery.
Yeah.
That would be okay. How is he?
Well,
disappointing, obviously, but how's he?
Yeah, I mean, tough for him to take, obviously, because it's not, it's something that is just unusual. And we can't do anything about it. So, and the op that he needs, it won't be straightforward either. But like I've said before, it's not for me to divulge information. So he'll get all the support that we can give him. But there you go. It's a part of the football world that you hope doesn't happen. But sometimes these things just occur, and you just got to be realistic about it and pragmatic about it and get on with it.
And Andy's, you indicated on.
Yeah, Andy's got I suppose the best way of explaining it is you're not flat-footed, are you?
No. So
the arch of your foot, there are 3, so I'm told anyway, 3 tendons which support that arch, and one of them is damaged, but damaged in a way which means I don't necessarily understand it myself, but damaged in a way which means he won't be out for long. So he's probably now got 2 instead of 3 supporting his heel. So apparently that's not bad. So he'll be back after the international break.
Okay, we're going to hear from Cal in a bit.
Yeah.
How have you kind of felt he's adapted to life back in that defence, especially because he played in a system before, he was always in a 3, now he's in a 2.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I mean, look, last year, and I'm aware that he made mistakes that cost us goals, but he was always visible. He always wanted the ball. He was always organising people. One of the things that I've been critical of us so far is players not necessarily always being visible. So for me, he's a player that I, wherever he plays, I know will be doing everything he can to affect the team in a positive way. Even if he's not playing as well as he can play himself, he has a positive impact on his teammates, and I think that's something which, certainly from my perspective of manager, is always a very, very positive thing.
Final question: what do you envisage doing tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
What day is it?
Well, it's Friday.
Friday. Yeah, travel to Swansea.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, no. With reference to.
Yeah, I know. I knew what you were referring to. I'm just trying to be awkward.